All right, cool. Well, then we'll rock an intro, and then we'll just be off to the races.
Sure.
No pun intended. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Monoxide Podcast. I'm your host, Harris, a.k.a. Monoxide, man of many automotive aspirations. And this is the show where we go beyond the meat. I'm still getting into a new flow of things without my former beloved co-host as he moves to California to much better weather than this POS state. But nonetheless, we'll just kind of jump right into it. So today I have my guest, Luan, right?
Yeah.
Because I kind of go into so it's a very similar name to like a Bosnian name. So it's like I kind of default to that accent. So I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah. And there's a reason for that. So the name is Luan. Last name is, I used to joke around and say, I got a last name, but I don't know how to pronounce it, like Hector from Fast and Furious. But so last name is Zeqollari. It's easier to say than it looks when you look at all the jumbled letters together. But it's the Albanian word for lion.
Okay.
So, Luan.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then, my background is, or my ethnic heritage, I should say, is Albanian. There's some Macedonian in there.
Yeah.
And, the former Yugoslav states. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, we have that in common. Our heritage is from
the same Eastern European
area.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep. So I wanted to get you on the podcast mostly because you have a lot of experience doing track day stuff. You're a big Chevy or GM guy from the looks of it. A lot of our listeners are in that category, but mostly I was looking at your channel. You do a lot of cool stuff. So I'm so happy you sent over some links because I've been trying, now that I'm doing a solo, I need to do a little more research on my guests. So you do a lot of cool kind of like service tutorials. I don't know how would you describe it?
The YouTube channel started really with me just doing a bunch of in-car track videos. Yeah. Mostly because I wanted to use it as study material. Not because I'm so into myself. I just had to keep watching myself. But the in-car camera gives you a great angle of your steering inputs and what you're doing in the car. So really, I just started posting it, and there's almost some bragging to it once you start hitting some accolades. But I got a lot of messages through YouTube and through forums and just direct messages or whatever it was on, hey, I noticed you run this kind of brake fluid. You should do a how-to video on how to change your brake fluid. And I was like, that's simple enough. There's a million of this content out there. Why don't you just go watch a how to change your brake fluid video? And then I started looking into it, and there wasn't a lot of content that I loved that I could recommend. Hey, watch this one; it's really good. So I'm I'll give it a shot. Why not? I'll start doing a how-to series. And
it's super in depth. I'm not sure. I didn't go too far back. But I was watching your what was the oil comparison video you did?
So that one was a big project.
That was big.
That one involved a lot of research. I got some of my friends over at GM involved, and they were kind enough to give me more information than I even knew going into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the big thing that I pride myself on is there's a lot of opinion videos out there, and when I'm making my content, I have a little bit of opinion and say, but I want to make sure I'm doing the right research and giving the people that are watching it the right information. Yeah,
you want to get on the facts because at the end of the day, that video got a good bit of views, but some of your videos get into the thousands of views, and that's content that people are seeking out for a reason. Most people aren't going to watch it for fun like I did. Yeah. They're going to watch it because they're trying to learn something, at least that style of content. So what they see, they're probably going to do. So the fact that you're putting in that extra research and the effort, it goes, like you said, you couldn't find anything before that you would recommend. So that's really, I loved it because you had 10, what's the term, jugs of oil or whatever?
Yeah, there was a bunch of different quarts of oil. Yeah. And I wanted to do that video because the oil recommendation specifically for the LT1 and LT4 powered cars that GM makes, whether it's the Corvette or the Camaro or anything else you'll find those in, the CT5V Blackwing or the Escalade V now, which is a badass ride.
Yeah, pull this just a hair closer. But
those are all they all use the same drivetrain, right? Or the powertrain, I should say. And the owner's manual recommendations are all over the place. One will tell you 530, another will say 040, another one tells you 1550 when you're tracking. So I just wanted to make sure that I did all the research on why those recommendations were made and why they're written certain ways in certain year, manuals and have been updated and stuff like that. So I'm a big believer of show me. That's how I learn too, is hands-on and show me. So yeah, I went and I borrowed some of the older oil from a friend of mine. I went and bought some of the other oil that I couldn't get my hands on. And ironically enough, like we're getting ready to do an oil change for my wife's car, which uses the 530. And I had like 5 quarts of it just sitting there in a jug. So I'm like, oh, perfect. And then, more specifically than just the oil, I dove into like the different bypass valve ratings on oil filters, which a lot of people don't even know is a thing. And I wanted to explain why that matters.
Yeah, because you basically said, if I remember correctly, like the one of the other ones that gets subbed out as like, if one of them is out of stock, here's the other one to use, and you're like, oh, this is not a good thing to use unless you're in a pinch. I think you said it was something like along the lines of like not circulating oil enough, I think.
Yeah, so some of them, like depending on the bypass valve rating, it could actually circulate unfiltered oil sooner, which you don't want. It's actually a mobile one. I don't know if we're going to get into brand names here, but the mobile one model number for the LT1 and LT4, it's yes, it'll physically fit. The threads are the same. It'll filter oil, but the bypass valve rating is really low. So there's a
what was it, like 5
risk.
to 10, I think?
That one was 12 to 15.
Okay.
It was 12 to 15, and I got that number directly from mobile because
you called them.
Yeah, I called them. I couldn't find any data, and they're like, "Well, 12 to 15." I'm like, "Well, it's a pretty big range. 3 psi is a pretty decent range." I'm like, "Can you tell me what it is specifically?" And they're like, "Yeah, 12 to 15." I was like, "Okay,
cool."
And when I was talking to like my friend Mike over at GM, who's part of the small block development team, so they work on all the small block Chevy engines, not just the LT1 and LT4, but like even the L8T truck motor or the new C8 Z06 engine, like all of those that he's the chief assistant engineer on, right? So he explained to me like, okay, this is the safe range for a bypass valve on a filter for these vehicles. Now you're gonna put me on the spot here. I believe it was
in like the 20s.
20, right? Yeah, it was like 20 to 27, I think.
Okay, that's a good range.
Yeah, I'll have to go back to the video to check the number, but yeah, 20 to 27, and the AC Delco filter that is recommended, and then like Wix makes a great filter. They're both at like 22 psi, which is perfect, right? And that's, there's some others out there, but like one of the others is like 30 psi, and that's way too high, right? So
yeah, so explain why you don't want a high bypass rating, or I guess what's the proper term?
You're right. The bypass valve, if the pressure on the bypass valve is set too high, you run the risk of actually swelling the filter, and then it essentially just won't filter, period, right? Or it can expand, it can crack, it can explode because the pressure gets up there too high. And of course, oil pressure changes, right? So if you're daily driving the car and it never sees any track use or anything like that, you're probably fine running whatever. Honestly, even that mobile one will probably work just fine. But when you're doing what the car was intended to do and using it at 6,000 RPM and higher, oil pressure can build up pretty fast. So especially if it's just over and over and over. Like even though I live here in Minnesota and we have Brainerd, I consider Road America my home track. I have over 400 laps there, which it's not, there's people out there with 20,000 laps at Road America, but I have a decent amount of experience there, and that track is so hard. It's so hard on engines, on brakes, on tires, because it's each lap is over 4 miles long, and you're just constantly just wringing the shit out of your engine and the car and every piece about it. So,
well, especially like when you go into, what is it, turn 1? Like you're coming in hot.
Turn 1, you're going in hot at turn 1. So there's 3 pretty long straights there. So going into turn 1, like I have an SS1 LE. I'm hitting anywhere between 140 142 and 148, depending on how good I came off of turn 14. And then from 3 to 5, that's another long, like equally as long. Or it's not equally as long. It's almost as long, but it's mostly downhill. So again, you're in that 140 plus range.
Wow.
An SS1LE, right? So a lot of the ZL ones are hitting 160 pretty easy. My buddy Matt used to have a wide body Hellcat, threw me the keys to it. It was doing like 162 on the front straight, and those cars, love them to death. I've had 3 Challengers. They don't handle road courses as well.
Yeah,
They really don't. So yeah, it's really hard. And then there's the back stretch that you're getting up into like the mid 130s or at the high end, like low 140s. So
Okay.
It's hard.
It's hard on your car. Yep.
Hard on the car. Yeah.
Yep. So then if you have, so let's go back to the oil filter then. So if you are at that, if you're wringing the shit out of your car, then what's the potential problem with that then if you have that filter that's not intended for that?
Well, again, you can cause the filter to if
swell.
If too much pressure builds up, you can cause the filter itself to swell and crack, and now you've spilled oil halfway down the track or worse.
Yeah, and that's a problem for everybody.
Yeah, everybody, right? Not just you.
Because then you got to shut down and clean up. And
Yep.
Dude, I was just at Milwaukee for I was with Minneapolis Mopar. He was just testing his new automatic setup on the Viper, right? And there was this big old Cummins in the right lane. That thing was cooking for sure. I can't remember. I think it was doing 11s or whatever. But anyways, I think this is his second or third or however many hits. But the truck's like halfway down the track, and then this thing was. I mean, dude, the sky was black. I should show you a photo later. Like the sky, you could not see the car in the other lane. It was rolling or whatever.
Yeah, rolling coal.
Yeah, right at the beginning. So then he's halfway down the track and it's all black smoke, and then all white smoke.
Yeah, not a good combo.
It was hilarious. But then, what's it called? As he passes me, I just hear ting, 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 ting. Just metal all over the track.
Yeah.
I got photos of it actually too. So if you zoom in enough, you can see like the no metal. So
yeah, it's crazy. And those diesels, man, they'll do like, they'll make 400 horsepower, but like 18,000 foot-pounds of torque. So
yeah.
They can turn themselves into metal butter really quick.
Metal butter. Dude, when you're playing with that much torque, that's when you start twisting stuff.
I know.
It's ridiculous. I mean, dude, it is cool to see. I need to get somebody that's a diesel expert on the show at some point, or in the diesel world.
Yeah, it's not me for sure.
No, yeah,
there's some of those diesel guys or gals. They put down some massive, crazy power.
Yeah, like 1,500, 2,000 pounds torque, just nuts. Yeah. So it's like, at some point I need to get one of those guys because this is your episode 48 now, I believe, and it's like, where are the diesel people at?
Yeah.
I'm not too concerned about the electric people, but I would like to get an expert on.
Get on, diesel people.
I don't think we really have anybody in Minnesota that does modifying of stuff like that.
I'm sure now that you said that, you're going to get a bunch of messages like, what are you talking about, man? There's like a whole club. So hopefully they respond and you can get them on.
That's how it works. You say absurd shit like that, and then they come out of the woodwork. Because if I'm asking nicely, hey, who's the EV expert? Nope, crickets. But if I say there's absolutely no EV experts in Minnesota, they're all going to be like, wait a second, I am. That's how you do it.
I'm an expert, or no, you got to go see so-and-so over in Plymouth. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So for your research when you were doing this then, so what were you because you said you had a buddy at GM, so who are you reaching out to kind of verify everything? So
I've been fortunate enough to, I don't know, man, luck of the draw or whatever it might be, or just being in the right place at the right time. But I know quite a few people at both, or I did know quite a few people at like FCA, Stellantis, Chrysler, whatever they are. I think they're Stellantis today.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
And I've just gotten to know a lot of folks over at GM, and through knowing them, get to call them my close friends. Just to interact with them almost every day. Like we have a Discord group because they're, kind of all over the place, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are in Michigan still, kind of spread out, but so. We were talking, I'll give a shout out to my friend Matt here. So Matt had a Camaro. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of friends named Matt. They might both come up later. But Matt had a SS1LE. He upgraded to a CT5V Blackwing. And that's the CT5V Blackwing that Throttle House used in their video where they had the Blackwing, they had the wide body Charger Hellcat, and the BMW M5. I don't know.
Probably the CS.
Yeah, I was going to say it might have been the CS. It was at least an M5 variant. And when they were using that car, his LT4 ate a spark plug, basically. Throttle House took care of it. Like, it was some pretty epic shit on their end. Like, they had a dealership like open their doors like late at night to get it fixed. But because of that, like, we wanted to know why. Like, what happened? How did that come about? And one of our friends who recently retired from GM, but his name's Tom. He was like the lead aerodynamicist for like the C5 and the C6 and the 5th gen Camaro and the 6th gen Camaro and so many more projects at General Motors that I'm really not giving him enough credit for, probably.
Yeah.
But he's like, hey, I can get you in touch with like the engine team and let's just talk to them and let's just tell them what happened. So like I was fortunate enough to get on these Zoom calls, right, or Teams calls, and just learn. Like that first session was just like me listening, and then like I started asking some questions, and then I asked them like, hey, can we do this again? But like not this problem specific. Because like we touched on his engine with the spark plug, and before that we actually had a conversation because my buddy Myron blew up his engine at Road America, and we wanted to know like what did that look like or why, what caused that. And a lot of times those guys at GM, like they want the engine back, they want to see it, right? They're like, we want to know what failed.
It's for their R&D.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of goes back into play on like why oil viscosity recommendations changed for the LT1 and the LT4. It was like 530 at first and then 040. And like as the platform grows and they learn more from it, they're like, oh, well, okay, maybe it should be a 40 weight oil. Like, they've gotten to the point where now like in the C8Z06, the factory fill is 5W50, which is not a common viscosity, right? So just through those conversations, like we essentially ended up having 3 hours worth of conversations where like I came back with notes and I was like, all right, I want to know about this and I want to know about this. And, tell me like I see people putting extra oil in the engine when they go to track days. Like, should we do that on the LT1 or the LT4? And he just flat out gave me like the answers. He's like, no, and here's why.
Okay.
Right? So there was more to it than just a flat yes.
God, I love those guys that give you a reasoning.
Yeah. I mean, true performance enthusiast and like the real engineer, not that there's a fake engineer out there, but almost to the point where like he would lose me. And I was like, all right. But then like he'd bring it back to like layman's terms.
Right.
Like,
well, part of that's on you too, though. Is, if you're an engaged, which you are, if you're an engaged person, you'll be like, all right, you lost me. Can you explain that? That's of course. That's one of the skills that I picked up in this podcast. Even like, you'll be explaining something. You'll be like, hold on, Luan, back up. It's like, I'm a dummy, layman's terms.
Right.
So that sounds like it was a really, I guess, engaging conversation. Did you have any like, you probably had a million takeaways, but did anything like strike you like, oh shit?
The biggest one, and I still get shit for this all the time, is there's always somebody in the forums or the groups who's like, what kind of catch can should I buy? Because it's a direct injection motor. Right? And then you'll get a bunch of people making these recommendations, and I just flat out asked them, I'm like, what kind of like, should you be running an oil catch can or a air oil separator? Like, they're called a couple of different things, but he was like, no, the system has one. It's, it's designed to work as it does. He's like, the only time you'll ever really need one is if you modified the hell out of that car and it's pushing like 1100 horsepower. And even then, if you like take the air filter out of the air intake and you see oil pooled up at the bottom, it's like, then you should probably consider one because the factory system isn't doing its job. He's like, the system is designed to recycle that oil through, and there's a drainage valve, and it puts it back into the pan. And he's like, and when you put a catch can in, like you're bypassing that. Mm-hmm. And now you're pulling some of that moisturous oil out. He's like, but it's not always a bad thing. Like, if you drive the car as intended, if you push that thing to 6,500 RPM, red line, whatever it might be, any of that residual oil that might end up in your on your valves and your intake or whatever, it just gets burned off. Right? So like that was one of the big takeaways for me. And to this day, like if somebody asks like, hey, what kind of catch can should I buy? I just say don't. And then you'll get like 35 other people who are like, no, you need a catch can. Look at all this crap that I captured in mine. And you're like, well, it's designed to flow back. So you're catching the stuff that's designed to flow back. So you're not letting it get back to that oil pan.
Okay.
So that was like I don't know if it was an eye opener, but it was definitely like a light bulb moment.
And this is for 6th gen Camaros in particular?
Yeah, 6th gen Camaro, the LT1, the LT4. I mean, really, any of the vehicles with those
modern
engines.
Chevys or GM.
The Corvette, the Camaro, the Blackwing. So, so that was pretty surprising. Let's see. One of the other like, oh wow moments was like those things can redline without grenading themselves, like 7,700 RPM, like once or twice. Right?
Okay.
Right. Like the red line from the factory is like 6,450 or 6,500 RPM, and through what they've learned, obviously they have to like literally destroy some just to find out what the absolute limits are.
Yeah, nobody tests harder than Koenigsegg though.
No, but also, not too many people are you're not picking up a Koenigsegg off of a production line either.
No.
Right? And if you have a problem with your Koenigsegg, I'm pretty sure Christian himself is going to be like, hey, tell me what happened.
Yeah.
This is a mass-produced vehicle.
Yeah.
It's a Chevy. All right, let's be honest. There's areas that you'll put it together and it'll run flawlessly, and then you'll get some duds here and there. It's a mass-produced vehicle.
There's so much more at stake. But no, I only bring that up because like one of my favorite videos is watching that Koenigsegg go over those crazy bumps. It's one of the best videos ever. Just and then they just beat the shit out of this.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
But the thing, back to your point, it's like it's mass-produced. So we're talking like every time there's a new generation coming, I would be surprised if they did anything less than a few dozen cars that just get absolutely destroyed.
Yeah, and cars as a whole, absolutely, if not more.
And then individual parts too.
But individual parts, the engines themselves, like they are run on engine dynos until they are bright hot red and everything is failing. So that they have all the data and measurements that say, okay, here's the part that failed, right? But
well, there's something to be said about that. And this is where hopefully, I really hope by the time I'm at episode 100, 200, whatever, I get to speak to people in the space, like when it comes to actual engine design. Because like when you go in there and you change, the angle of this thing, that changes how that entire thing performs, So when it comes to actually designing, like obviously I'm sure there's some universal rules, right? Like new engines share a lot of similarities to old ones, but and there's some things that you just have to stick to. But I wonder when it comes to R&D, I would love to talk to somebody to see like why they make the decisions they make. So I'm not sure if you probably didn't get into that too much, but
I wanted to ask all the questions.
A million,
and 8, right? But there were, we were time limited. And he was actually going out of his way. Like he was taking these calls like from home, right? And like he's like, nah, guys, I gotta go. I know we're a little overtime, but like I gotta go make dinner. That, like really stepping out and doing a huge favor for all of us, which was really cool.
Well, it sounds like he was pretty excited too.
Yeah.
To work with the local community. Yeah.
Right. And he loved talking about it. I mean, if you think about it, that's like his baby. Like, hey, this is my creation, right? Yeah. It's not just him, obviously.
It's usually teams of like 20 or whatever.
Yeah. So, but for him to be able to talk to the end user on something that he and his team created, like how cool is that, right? And vice versa, how cool was it for us to go to the GM small block team and just get this wealth of knowledge, right? And when I did that, I'm like, I want to get this out, right? Like, how do I talk about the things that, how do I share this, right? And that's when I decided, I'm going to make this oil comparison video, because it's one of the biggest issues that people who track the car, right? So Chevy gives a track warranty on the 1LE vehicles and the Corvettes. What that means is that if you are using the car as intended, on track, and something fails and something happens that isn't just plain old abuse, right? Like if you money shift fifth to first, that's not covered.
That sounds like something I would do, yes.
Yeah. But there's stories out there where people have money shifted. They went to go 3 to 4 and went 3 to 2 and sent, they had a rapid unscheduled disassembly.
I almost did that to Sean's 1M.
Yeah. Sometimes honestly, it depends on the dealership and what their final say is. Cause like once you mark a vehicle's warranty void, like it's it. Like it's void. But they have track warranty coverage. So my friend Patrick, who lives in Florida, who frequently runs Sebring, he went through 2 engines. The first one, they just bought his car back, and then he ended up getting a 2020 in Rally Green, which is an amazing color, and they only made it for 2020. And like he went through that engine too, and they wanted to buy it back. He's like, no, like fix the engine. I want to keep this car because
it's a special car.
The color isn't made anymore. I love the looks. I love the color. And that's what really drove the information for the oil, right? Because he's like, I don't want to track. He's like, I came from BMWs, and I've been tracking for 8 years or 10 years or whatever he said. And he's like, I've never had this issue. Yeah, he's like, I've had maintenance and I've had problems, but like they never grenaded the engine. He's like, I've gone through 2 engines already with this Camaro. He's like, I love the platform. It's far superior to what I was driving, but like, I'm not sure I can get back out on the track and trust that I'm not going to smoke another engine. And we wanted to know why, like what the hell is going on? And that's where we came, like, if you look at the owner's manual, they actually have like a track addendum that they also give you with the car. It says that they recommend for track use 15W50. And then when you're done tracking, change it back to like 040. And then that led me to ask more questions. I'm like, well, what about this 550 that you guys just came out with for the Z06? And in no uncertain terms, Mike from GM was like, yeah, that oil's like the magic elixir. Yeah. He's like, if you're not running the car, if you're not daily driving it, if you don't use it in the winter, like, you could totally use that. So I've been running personally the 5W50 it was formulated with Mobil 1 for the C8 Z06. I ran it for just over 4,000 miles with 420 track miles at Road America.
Wow.
Like 4 hours of track use. And I just sent it off to Blackstone Labs. In fact, they just got it today. So I have all of my oil tested and analyzed because I want to be on top of, one, I'm a data nerd. I like reading that stuff.
Did you read it today then?
I haven't got it. So no, I literally just started changing the oil the other day, sent the sample off, put it in the mail. I looked at the package, like the tracking info. They just received the oil sample today. So I'll probably get the results back in a week or 2.
Okay.
But like I intentionally left it in as long as I did because I wanted to see how it would hold up. Right. So
explain how this so is this your first time doing Blackstone Labs?
No.
Or no, so explain how that works. 'Cause I've heard about it before, but I'm not familiar with the process or what they do exactly.
Yeah. So Blackstone Labs will, analyze your oil, and the analysis that they do is like they'll break it down and see like how much sulfur is in the oil, if there's copper, aluminum, tungsten, like all the different metals that could be in that oil, if there's evidence of like coolant or gasoline, fuel, diesel, whatever, and then they compare it to all of their information that they have done. Like here's, like in my case, the LT1. They take all of the information they have for the LT1 and they compare it. Like, hey, on other LT1s that are similar to what, how many miles you have that have been track driven, like your numbers are better than average, or your numbers are what we expect to see.
Yeah.
Or, hey man, you've got like 800 parts per million of aluminum. You might want to get something checked out. Like that's not normal, right? So it gives you this, almost like a really fancy Excel sheet. Right?
Yeah, like a bell curve.
Of all the breakdown of each type of chemical, material, and all that stuff. And it just, for me, it's peace of mind.
Right.
Right? Like, oh, hey, everything looks normal. Great. I can continue beating the shit out of my car on the track, and I don't have to worry about, extra engine wear somewhere along the lines. It was also great when we bought a used Hyundai Kona for my wife, and we did I didn't own the car from new, so I didn't know how it was taken care of. So I just did an oil analysis, and it came back normal, right? So I was like, great. And we used to have, showing my parenting dad age here, but we used to have a Grand Caravan. And at 70,000 miles, I did an oil analysis on it, and it came back, and it was like, hey, a little bit extra. We see a little bit more fuel than we typically do, but everything else looks good. I was like, all right, cool. I didn't, that engine's holding up or whatever. So it's nice because what you do to go back to the actual process of it is during the oil change. Whether you're doing it yourself or if you have somebody do the oil change for you, you just hand them they will send out a kit for free, right? Blackstone, you just go to their website. It's like blackstone-labs.com or net or something. We can get that later. They'll send you a kit for free, and then comes with a little bottle with an oil, like a oil absorbing paper that's wrapped around it. A plastic bag, a black container, and then a shipping bag. Right? So they really go the extra mile to make sure that if it does spill, it ends up in a plastic bag with some oil absorbing material. So it doesn't become like this toxic, a hazardous environment if it breaks or whatever. But during the oil change, you don't want to get it as soon as you get the oil out. And they give you instructions. It's halfway through as your oil is emptying out. You want to fill it up. So you fill up this bottle. It's, I don't know if I had to guess, maybe 5 or 6 ounces worth of oil. Cap it off, put it in the multi-layered packaging, send it off, and then they get you a report within a week or 2, depending on how busy they are.
There's no cost to this then?
So that's where it comes. So the cost comes in once they receive it. Because there's a couple of different options you can check on the paperwork that it comes with. Oh. Do you want just a basic oil analysis? Do you want, I think it's called a TBN test, where they also check for additional additives or fillers or whatever. That I'm not an oil expert in those terms, but that's an extra $10 or whatever. And it used to be, long time ago, it used to be $25. But you didn't have to pay until you had it analyzed. Now I think it's closer to 37 because everything's more expensive now.
That's fair.
But I think it's $35 or $37, and then they'll send you all that info. But to get the kit, you don't have to pay anything up front. You just have to pay once you send it in.
Right.
So I have 4 more kits at home just waiting for my next oil changes. I didn't pay up front for those. So I'll pay once the next oil change comes up.
This sounds like 23andMe, but for cars.
Yeah, actually, that's a great point.
Because they're going to collect all that data regardless of whether you use it or not. But that's
Correct.
super. I'm guessing they probably get back to the manufacturers probably too.
I don't know if they have any affiliations with the manufacturers. It would probably be smart if they did.
They probably. I'd imagine they do. They would make bank off of that.
Yeah. But I'm on the flip side, I'm sure big manufacturers do their own testing for that kind of stuff.
That's fair too. So. Well, it's interesting because like once it gets to the real world, because like I feel like manufacturers, they probably like, okay, I'm probably gonna backpedal after I say this, but for example, like we'll see like Lamborghini, they'll fly their cars in to test in Colorado. You know, they'll go up to Pikes Peak and all that stuff. We always see camo cars over there. Yeah. So I feel like manufacturers, they can only do so much real world testing though.
True.
On scale. Because like once you like, I mean, law of large numbers, right? If you go from 100 cars to a million, or not a million, let's say 10,000 cars, that's a big jump in data. So
yeah, and you have a bigger slice of the pie overall to compare your data to. So you're absolutely right. Manufacturers they go to Pikes Peak for, you know, high elevation testing. They run their cars through the deserts for extreme heat. But on the same token, they might do, I'm making this number up, 5 or 10, right? You get 10,000 samples. It's a better understanding of how your product is doing overall.
Yeah, that's why year one cars are
extremes.
Yeah, that's why year one cars are sketchy sometimes of any new model.
Yeah, that's true. Let's the Bronco. That's probably one of the first one that comes to mind. With
really?
The problems that the new Bronco had.
Well,
I'm a little bitter about that. My wife wanted one, and we ordered one like an hour after they announced it. And then it got delayed, and then delayed, and then delayed. And then when it finally got built, the dealership was like, well, we might put a $20,000 like adjusted market value on it. And I was like, well, then I might not buy it.
Right.
And then like they confirmed, and I was like, okay, well, there's nothing I can do about it. We didn't have like a signed agreement saying I would only pay MSRP or whatever. So
yeah, that sucks.
It does. It did suck. I know my wife was really bummed out about it. Yeah, that was going to be like her toy. But from what I learned later, like there was a lot of issues with the Broncos. I mean, with the tops, the interior coverings was like flaking away. The engines are like self-grenading, and I think somebody recently filed a class action on Ford for that specific engine, and it affects
it was a weird time during COVID because a lot of manufacturers, we saw this with some of the Rams too, like one of my buddies had 3,500 2,500 or whatever, and you know, like manufacturers would basically have to find different suppliers for, like in his instance it was the rear view camera or whatever, because a lot of new cars, their mirrors have cameras.
My Camaro has that.
So it had some issues with that, and then they found out that it was from a different supplier or whatever too. So it's like a lot of I feel like we might see a number of things as a result of that.
It's possible for sure.
The first cars that come to me though, I'm so sorry, the Supras first of all, which isn't too bad because they had their own little things going on, but pros and cons. But then also the new Z06, and that's because I saw a lot of articles. So this is kind of where I always wonder, is there truth to it, right? Because some people will be like, oh yeah, the Z06 is phenomenal, and then you see articles like, oh, this one grenaded, or 2 motors grenaded in the same week. I almost wonder if there's like an assault campaign sometimes by these like journalists. I don't know. I'm so skeptical in 2023.
Sometimes. And I know you said sorry, but I'm not affiliated with General Motors. I know I have a lot of friends that work there, and you know, I would probably feel a certain type of way if, like, you know, you were talking. You're not even talking bad. You're just stating.
It's just what I saw. Yeah.
Stuff that you saw, right?
Yeah.
And I was not given any detail, right? But like I remember. Before that third conversation I had with that team, I wanted to ask stuff about the Z06 engines because I had just heard about that. My friend Marco, he had an orange one. He blew his engine like within like a couple weeks of him owning it, and others that I know that were having some issues, and I almost had a stipulation like, yeah, we'll have this call, but like just don't ask about the Z06 right now. It's like a sore subject. So out of respect for the people who got me in front of that team, I didn't.
Right.
Not because they had anything to hide, but obviously they realized something was going on because they were taking care of those things. Like, oh, you had a Z06 that went down? Yeah, we'll get you a new engine like in a week.
Yeah.
Like, it was fast response. So I think there was some type of like failure with mechanical internal parts.
Which, I mean, we kind of, again, this is where I have respect for Chevy. Chevy and Ford are absolutely crushing it at the moment. I grew up Mopar, but they haven't done anything notable in about a decade since the Viper was gone, or 6 years, whatever, in my opinion. But Ford and Chevy are crushing it. So that's kind of where I was like, all right, they're trying something entirely new, regardless of what you think about the C8. It's mid-engine, and the Z06, that's the highest naturally aspirated V8 ever made. So the first year is probably bound to have some issues.
Exactly.
So that's kind of why I'm happy they're pushing the envelope, but that's what happens when you push the envelope. You might get a few duds along the way.
Right. So it's not like every single engine was having an issue, but when you're also, charging some of those fully loaded, like a 3LZ with every option under the sun, with like the Z07 package and the carbon fiber wheels, like you're talking MSRP around $175,000.
Yeah,
for Corvette, right? That's not big numbers for like a Ferrari or a Lamborghini,
right?
Or shit, even like some of the R8s.
Yeah,
the Corvette's never been in that stratosphere before.
But they're kind of filling a gap there. Who was
I
talking to? We had Travis on. The episode aired this previous Monday. We were talking about how they're kind of filling that gap between 100K and 200K, because there's really nothing in that category besides like maybe a Nissan GTR.
Yeah, because the NSX is done. That was also in that. A
failed project. Well, okay, I shouldn't say failed. They really screwed up with their price point. I was really disappointed with that, because the thing is, spend 20, 30K more, you're in Ferrari Huracan range. At the time, we're not talking about these ridiculous prices now. Yeah. But they also waited so long to release it. They did a Super Bowl commercial in 2013, something like that?
Yeah, it was just a long... I mean, the LFA had the same problem, right?
Yeah, by the time it came out...
By the time it came out, it was $400,000, and it was...
dated?
It was dated, and the performance level wasn't there anymore, and it's still one of the best sounding cars ever made.
One of the best cars, period. It just was a little late to the party.
It was late to the party, right. Yeah. But you're right. The C8 Z06 is definitely filling that gap. Mm-hmm. But from a General Motors standpoint, that's their most expensive vehicle that they've ever made.
That's their Halo car, yeah.
Their Halo car. So when something goes bad, they're on it. You have a concierge program that takes care of you, which is good to hear. So.
If I was evil, what I would do, because a big problem during COVID was the resellers, the price gouging and all that stuff, because a lot of people, that's why Chevy did the thing. It's like, if you, what was it, 6 months or 1 year you had to wait before selling the car to keep your warranty?
I think it was 6 months.
So if you sold the car within 6 months, I believe it was, the warranty was voided. So if I was Chevy, if I was evil, what I would do is just sprinkle a few duds and articles out there. Make those people keep those cars. Keep that warranty.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good plan.
I said if I was evil.
I know. I was going to say there's some weird stuff happening up at the top end of GM, but I don't think intentional motor chaos was one of them.
If I ran the world, because again, that was a problem too, as we saw once those started hitting the streets. A lot of people were just marking up for 100K, which it's a phenomenal car. I would love to drive one. I shot one and I got to hear it. I got to drive the Stingray, which deceivingly fast. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, they move out, man. They move out for the base Corvette, right?
I'm excited for them to continue dropping in value now that we're in a post-COVID era. Yeah. Because if those get down into the, maybe not 60, maybe in the 70, 80 range, I think they're in the 80s already.
Yeah, I mean, depending on how it's optioned, you can find some early 2020s with, around 10 to 15,000 miles on them for low 70s.
It's really...
But it's probably like a 1LT.
Yeah.
So not a lot of options, but still.
Yeah, if you're a bozo like me, you don't need options. As long as it's got a backup camera and an all right sound system, we're good. I'm usually like in that 2LT category, because I remember for a while I was looking at like Stingrays for the C7.
I was the 2LT was always like, everything I wanted was always part of the 2LT package.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need a 3LT.
That car sounds...
Need this, and this.
Yeah, that car freaking sounds like a bat out of hell too. Like it for what it looks like, regardless of what you think of its looks, right. It really does not sound what it looks like. It looks like it should have a V6 hybrid turbo because of the current era we're in. Like for example, like McLaren and their, what is it, the Artura, I think, has the V6 twin turbo. It's like, or hybrid or whatever it is. It looks like it's a hybrid. Yeah, it looks like it should have that, but instead it has this big thumping V8. So
I know, and it sounds glorious,
amazing. Yeah, once you put it in Z mode or whatever. Yeah, I can't wait.
One of the most frequent questions I have on all of like my YouTube track videos is, dude, what exhaust is that? I'm like, that's stock. My powertrain is stock engine, stock airbox, stock exhaust.
It sounds so good. I was listening to the video and you got the audio pretty good.
I did an external microphone. That's why I ran a microphone to the like
a lapel.
Yeah, I ran a little lapel mic, and it's like this cheap $30 Amazon microphone that just works. Like my buddy Mike was like, "Hey, I'm gonna try this microphone," and I was like, "Dude, I spent 3 times as much on the last microphone. I was just blowing it out." Sure enough, this $30 cheap, it's like Purple Panda or something like that. It's like the most ridiculous thing. It works. It sounds great. It doesn't get blown out from the frequencies that are put out by the exhaust. And I eventually just permanently mounted it right next to my license plate.
Okay.
Just put a little wind muff on it, and that's the stock exhaust. And it sounds fantastic. And people are like, "There's no way that car's stock."
You'll have to show me that setup at some point. That sounds really cool. Because like I have 2 sound setups. So I have my H5N with a super shotgun or whatever, which is what I switched to. I put a lot of money into that setup. It's great if I'm hanging out of a car getting video rollers. Yeah, catches are great. But I also did have the lapel set up. Wired it outside of the car. We did a test run on Sean's 1M. It did get blown out a little bit because that car is freaking loud at 6,000 RPM or whatever. But and it was a little goofy because we had to tape it around through the trunk and all that. So if you forget about it, it looks a little goofy. Yeah. But it's a sweet setup. If you can get it in the right spot and mount it, if you have it above your license plate, that's sick too.
Yeah, I figured, you know what, I'll just, there's the backup camera over here. I'm like, I'll put the mic. Actually, if you look the photos that you shot of my car, it's there. It's permanently mounted. Okay. I even left a little wind muff on there and everything. People make fun of me for it, or people don't even notice it or don't care or whatever. But
you'd have to be looking pretty close.
I don't care. But it's there. It's just to the left of the license plate.
So what is it recording into, or what do you hook it up to?
So when I'm recording my in-car video for track days, it's going to a GoPro. Okay. It's not even like the most recent. It's like a GoPro 7. Okay. So and I think they just dropped the 12.
Right? Stay away. I haven't tried the 12 yet, but I've been hearing so many issues with these new GoPros. They're overheating. Like I got the 10, brand new 10. Overheats after I think it was 12 minutes. Yeah. I don't think I was even shooting 4K. No, I definitely wasn't shooting 4K. So I was really annoyed because my 8 will go forever.
Yeah. I heard the same thing on a lot of the newer ones. They're just trying to cram too much tech into the same footprint, right? And I think they just don't have the cooling figured out. Insta's coming on the scene right now because you can get the 360 or whatever, but then you could also get this little thing that detaches from it, and it's super cool. I want to look into it. Like my buddy Jay has one. He was basically rocking it the whole rally. He strapped it to his forehead right here. It was the goofiest looking thing, but when he went into a ditch with his R8, it was hilarious because he got it all on camera, and it's just this light camera taped to his fucking hat or whatever. So I've used a cam box before too, which is the visor cam, it goes inside the helmet. And it's like a cam box V3 or something. It's not even mine. I have incredible friends and they just let me borrow shit all the time. Yeah. I haven't broken anything yet, so I guess they trust me with it. But
knock on wood.
Yeah, exactly. That one, the stability is a little off. Riding in a car on track is not a smooth experience, right? And those videos give you direct, one of my favorite in the visor cam videos is me hunting down and chasing down a Ford GT, a new Ford GT at Mid-Ohio. And like it took me a couple laps, but I finally caught it. But that video like can give you motion sickness. Like even if you don't get motion sick, like if you watch it long enough, it's like an old like Blair Witch movie. It's just like constantly shaking because that's what's happening, right? And the stability just wasn't there in that version. I guess they've got a new version that's better.
Yeah.
But
we're so spoiled with these stability technology things coming out because like 5 or 6 years ago, like even my DSLR, like it has stabilization, but it's nowhere near a GoPro.
Right. You probably get some weird rolling that happens in the footage if you're using it for like in-car shots, right? Where like it's mounted, right? Because I have mine mounted to my seat. Just like a headrest mount. I noticed I don't even have like the full GoPro stabilization because there's like different levels on my camera, and I did like the very basic one because I want a little bit of camera shake. Right. Otherwise, it looks like a video game, right?
That's fair.
It's not an authentic look. And actually, that's a lot of the reason I switched from like 60 frames down to 30. And this last round that I was just there 2 weekends ago, I wanted to see what how it looked on the cinematic, so I shot it in 24p. It's okay. Like I think for YouTube content, I think 30 is probably what I'll stick with, like 30 frames a second. We might be losing some of your audience at this point, but also you mentioned the Insta, right? Hot take: I don't like the Insta 360.
You don't like the 360? Why is that?
Oh man, let me rephrase that.
Oh, okay. Now, it's too late to rephrase.
Well, I don't like the sticking off the back of the car.
Oh, you just mean the 360 cameras in general?
360 cameras in general, where they're like, yeah. No offense, Insta, that wasn't directed at you, but like the 360 shot where like you got it on the stick and the stick disappears. It's just not. It looks like, first of all, it has terrible fisheye. Right, it gives a weird warping to the back.
That's part of wide angle life.
Yeah, right. So maybe if they fix that, or can either fix it in post, or if there's a different setting people just aren't using. But there's so much bounce when it's on that long stick that eventually gets edited out.
Yeah,
it's cool. The concept is cool. It looks like you've got a chase cam following you.
Yeah,
but
it depends on the. So we have a carbon fiber one that's pretty stiff and rigid, so it's not too bad.
Okay.
I have the GoPro 360, so I use it on my dad's AMG just to test it out or whatever.
Yeah,
it wasn't too shabby, and the nice thing is when you zoom in, you lose a little bit of the fisheye.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to show you because it's. I mean, the fisheye is still there, and I'm not gonna get rid of that. But it's interesting. But I do hate when it's bouncy.
Yes,
I feel like if you have a more rigid setup. Sure, you might have the stick, but at least it'll be cooler footage. But
it could be, yeah, absolutely.
It would suck on a track.
There's a lot of potential for it.
Yeah.
If we can get some of the nuances figured out with that video and like the settings, like even my GoPro, I shoot in linear mode.
Yeah.
So that there isn't that wide angle, and that's why it doesn't look like I'm in a fishbowl inside of my car, and it doesn't look like my arms are 14 feet long.
Yeah.
It's because I do mess with the settings. I set the white balance. I adjust the aspect ratio. I am messing with frames per second, where most people just out of the box turn it on and they go.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Like one of my most asked questions is, dude, what setup are you using in your car to record?
Which it looks pretty good. It does the job. That's the thing. If you put the extra effort in, like you said, just dial into settings, because like a lot of people, I don't know if there's any age limit on that. I want to say there is, but there probably isn't. Like a lot of people are just lazy and just throw it in, hit record, hope for the best. But then like I don't like wide too much. I like to be in that like somewhat wide to narrow, in that range. But going ultra wide is just not for me. I can't see any purpose to possibly use it outside of like maybe if you mount it to the back of the car. But
yeah, I mean that ultra wide, you're shooting outside of a realistic peripheral view
by a lot,
by a mile.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's but yeah, I'm an AV geek, so I could talk about those kind of settings all day long. But
I definitely do want to talk about because you do a lot of track. So if I had to ask, how many track days have you done at Road America or in general total? If you had to ballpark it.
If I had to ballpark it, I think it's actually not a lot, believe it or not. It's I mean, it might be a lot by some standards, but I know there's guys out there and girls out there every weekend.
Yeah.
And that's not me. I don't live that life. I can't afford that life because track weekends are expensive. But I'd say I've probably done, I don't know, more than 25 for sure.
Okay. Most of which are at Road America.
A lot of them are at Road America, but I've been all over. I've done track days at Road Atlanta. I've done Watkins Glen. I've done, I mentioned Brainerd earlier. I've also done DCTC, which is like really an autocross track on steroids, if you think about it. Mm-hmm. Mid-Ohio. I've done Autobahn Country Club. I've done the three in Michigan, like the three big ones: Waterford Hills, Gingerman, Grattan. So I try not to limit myself to one track. Really, I want to get as much track experience at all the different tracks that I can. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Road America is such a special place to me for a couple of reasons. One, it's gorgeous. Like if you've never been there, and I know you were there recently, right?
Mm-hmm, correct.
The facilities themselves are really it's not what you expect from a track.
It's not run down at all.
It's not run down. I mean, there's a reason that they get return business from places like IndyCar and NASCAR and IMSA, and it's because not only is the track looked after, but the facilities for all of viewership and their their patronage, right?
It's great for spectating.
It's fantastic for spectating. Great viewing locations. When you think of public bathrooms, most of the time they're gross. And like Road America has legit like buildings for bathrooms, mm-hmm. right? So you're using a real toilet. I know this is like going way off track here, but like, the scenery is beautiful, not the toilet, but the track scenery is beautiful. And then the other part for me is that like, 5, 6 years ago, 7 now, I don't know. We started like this annual guys trip. Mm-hmm. And back then it was like, I still lived in Michigan. I'm originally from like the Metro Detroit area, right? Mm-hmm. So surrounded by cars my entire life. Half of our friend group was in Michigan. Half of it was in Minnesota. We're like, well, where can we meet? Like kind of in the middle, right? And we're like, well, shit. Road America is like 5.5 from where I live and like 7 from where I lived in Michigan. Mm-hmm. So like the Michigan crew drives a little further, but then that became like an annual every year. Mm-hmm. We're like doing this thing. And now it's at a point where we rent a condo regularly from this couple that rents out stuff on like Vrbo. We're not even going to Vrbo anymore. We're just going directly to the couple because they trust us. They know us. Like, yeah, we're good with it. And that way you don't have to pay a Vrbo fee. We don't have to pay a Vrbo fee, etc.
Is Vrbo like Airbnb?
Yeah.
I've never heard of that one.
VRBO. Yeah, it's like an Airbnb.
Okay, I've never heard of that one before. That's new.
Yeah, it's I think they're Airbnb's competitor. It's like Uber and Lyft.
Yeah.
Same thing. In fact, you could probably find the same place on Airbnb.
Yeah, they usually list it on both places.
Right, exactly. But that became our annual like guys trip. And now like our friend group has spread out even further. Like we've got one that moved to North Carolina, one that, we still got our Michigan group, we got Ohio, and like we still come to Road America every year, at least once a year. So that's why Road America is holds a special place in my heart, I guess.
It's the home track.
It's the home track, and now that I've done like 400 laps there, it's I feel like I'm finally at one with the track. Like I get it, and I'm still making mistakes. I wish I could have a mistake-free lap. Like even on my personal best, which I just hit a couple weekends ago, if you watch that clip, I have to like let off for a brief second because there's a blue NSX that I had to get a point by from, because it is a HPDE event, right? High performance driver education event. So it's not like it's not wheel to wheel racing, right? There's courtesy involved for safety reasons. Like I can't just pass anybody blindly. I have to make sure they know that I'm there and they have to give me a point by. So even on that lap, my personal best, I had an obstacle, like a rolling obstacle, I guess. Those NSX guys. And then like the very next lap, I was only like 0.7 slower, but it's because I had to wait for a GT350 to give me a point by. That was Mustang, guys. So I still haven't had the perfect lap there, but I think I'm about as close as I'm going to get to it. And that's taken me a long time, right? 400 laps before I'm like finally really comfortable there. Like, if you watch some of my sessions, I'm having like full-on conversations with the passengers, like while I'm doing 140 miles an hour. First year I ever went there, I was like sweating, like this.
Yeah, white knuckling it.
High-speed track, like get out. My hands were still in this position. So. But yeah, I love tracking anywhere and everywhere, and I've got a few bucket list tracks. COTA is one of them. I've been to COTA twice. Once for a WEC race, and then last year my wife surprised me and got me F1 tickets. It was my 40th birthday, so I just turned 41 this year, and we went to Formula One in Austin at COTA, and it was spectacular. And I want to get on track, like in my car.
It's a beautiful track, especially going into turn one. What is it, uphill? Yeah, that uphill. Dude, where George Russell bombed into signs last year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you were at that, right?
I was. Yeah, I was there.
Which turn were you on?
So we had grandstand seats at turn 9.
Okay.
So it's a little further down. Turn 11 is the hairpin that leads onto the back straight. Turn 9, like there's a section of like the S's.
Yep.
The high-speed S's, and then turn 9 is like just after that.
Okay.
So it's not quite a high-speed corner, but it's not low. It was great because the dip at turn 9 gave all of the titanium plate sparks. So I had a bunch of pictures of actual like the sparks coming off the car. So it was really
That's super sick.
Yeah, it was really cool.
So I know people could always go watch your video, but I really enjoyed your video talking about track insurance. Which is the video where you crashed at Road America.
I did.
So first of all, before we get into the track insurance side of things, I'm more so curious. Yeah. So what happened that resulted in that crash?
Yeah. So I've had a couple of years now to kind of reflect, but I think I knew it that day. Like later that day, I knew it. I think I have a totally different mentality now when I go to a track day than I did up until the point that I crashed. And I crashed because I was there to set the fastest lap time I possibly could. It wasn't about having fun. It was about, I'm going to go beat my own best. I'm going to post it to the Camaro forums. Everybody's going to throw me a parade, right? Like not literally, but like that was the mentality I have. It was the first day of a 2-day weekend, the first session of the day for my run group at the time. And like second lap, first flying lap, and I ruined my whole weekend. What happened is my brain wasn't on yet. Tires were still cold, brakes were cold, and I wasn't thinking. Right, I was approaching the kink, so I crashed at the kink. For those that don't know, Road America, the kink is one of the most, I don't want to say the most dangerous, but it's definitely one of the most challenging corners in any of the tracks in the country. It's partially blind. It's like a 45-degree bend, partially blind, off camber, and you're surrounded by concrete walls. There's no runoff. And the fastest that I took that corner this past weekend was 112, and that's moving for a factory vehicle with no high downforce, right? On that day, I approached the corner at like 124.
I think I saw that on your video. Yeah.
And by the time I realized and had my oh shit moment, like I was doing like 112 on the grass because I just overshot the corner.
Just came in too hot.
Came in way too hot. Didn't scrub enough speed. By the time I hit the grass, I had a moment of panic, overcorrected because like it spun me to the right.
Yep.
And like I said, you're surrounded by concrete on both sides. So I was looking at a concrete wall saying, oh shit, I don't want to like really seriously get hurt. So I started correcting and I overcorrected. So once the car kind of got in shape, it was too far the other way and it snapped around. Mm-hmm. So now I'm going backwards and I hit the wall on the passenger side at about 90 miles an hour. It was 88 miles an hour, but I didn't go back to the future, unfortunately. So the car actually didn't look that bad if you look at the pictures.
No.
I was like, new bumper, bump this quarter panel out. None of the glass broke miraculously like that. The airbags didn't go off, probably because I hit backwards. I was a little sore. I had my, people say the Hans device doesn't come into play when you're going backwards, but it does come into play side to side. So I didn't get like a side whiplash. The biggest thing that hurt was my ego. And then I had a really bad like bone bruise on my foot. Mm-hmm. My left foot, when I hit the wall, came up and hit the back of the clutch. So like that, it's a steel pedal basically. But yeah, it's hard to see in the video, but as soon as I hit the wall, I actually let go of the wheel because Daniel Ricciardo broke his hand this year. Not saying that I'm in an F1 car, but that happens all the time. Incidents, people hold on to the wheel and it burns right through their gloves or their skin if they're not wearing gloves. So I let go of the wheel like just right at the right moment. I took the impact and then later found out that I didn't realize it at the time, but it bent the frame so bad that the driver's side quarter panel was also pushed out. Like creased, some of the paint was cracking around the wheel well and stuff like that. So that was, it was just me I rushed into the whole day.
Right. Like you probably could have done that, probably could have gone for a personal best, but you just weren't.
I wasn't patient.
Yeah. Well, it's like not even patient. It's just like you get excited.
Yeah.
It's like your second. That's actually exactly how I hurt my leg at the beginning of the year in January. Like it was literally my second set of the day. I doubled the weight and then all of a sudden just pop. And then, I've been limping around ever since. But it's like, I get that mentality. You're like, oh yeah, let's get after this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just wasn't patient enough. And I had that mentality of, I'm going to own this whole day. It's going to be my day. It's going to be the best day.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. But thankfully, luckily, I wasn't really seriously hurt. More importantly, I had all of my friends there. And every single one of them, it was, none of it was like, they were all concerned.
Of course.
Because I had to take an ambulance ride back to the medical facility. Because again, Road America, fantastic facility. Like they have their own medical building, right? And like they wouldn't let me call anybody because they didn't really know like my state of thought, if I was in shock or whatever. So I couldn't call my wife. I couldn't even call my friends who were in the garages in the paddock, right? And they watched my car get brought back and put into the garage without me in it. Mm-hmm. Finally, I was able to, call my wife, explain what happened, told the guys that I was okay, and I ended up going back. But all of them were there to support me. And then because I had the GoPro in car, like I was able to watch that not only as soon as I got back into the garage, excuse me, but what we do every night when we go to that weekend is like we review cool stuff of the day or just, things we could have done different, like on a television, right? We watch it. And I got a lot of like critical instant feedback. I'm like, yeah, I think if you didn't overcorrect, you may have actually saved it, right? Or if you just committed a little more or just backed off even just a hair, you might have actually made that corner, right? So it was really good. And then the next day, my other friend, Matt, not the same Matt that I talked about earlier with the Blackwing. This is the one, he currently has the ZL1 that you'll see on my YouTube channel. But at the time, he had a wide body Hellcat. That's the Challenger that I mentioned earlier. Dude, the very next morning, he threw me the keys to his car. And he was like, go peel your numbers off of your car, stick them on mine, run my car, because we were in different run groups. I'm like, are you sure, dude? You know I just like put my car into a wall yesterday, right? And he was like, dude, if you don't get back on the horse, I'm afraid you're never going to do this again. And I think I owe him big for that, because he's probably right. I don't know that I would have gone back to tracking if he hadn't thrown me the keys. And that was huge for me. So, I mean, you know this, the car community is such a great community. They'll literally give you your shirt off your back. And it doesn't matter. I mean, there's some real douches out there, but it doesn't matter what you drive, right? I'm a car guy in general. I know we talked about this earlier. Like, I've driven everything. German, Japanese, all of the American brands. Like, it doesn't matter to me. If it's a cool car, I like it. I want to be a part of it. Like, I enjoy them. So, you know, for the car community in general, I think we're some of the best people around. But yeah. So,
we had a similar story with Piero too, because I don't know if you watched that episode or the highlight of it by chance, but basically, like,
Grid Life, where he hit
where he's hit the shit out of the FRS or BRZ or whatever, they're all the same. But you know, before he had an opportunity to even realize that, you know, to even think about what just happened, his buddies were already reassembling his car.
Yeah, I thought that was cool, and I could relate to that.
Yeah,
right. Because we literally, while my car was in the grass, like in the Road America graveyard, because there was a couple of other cars there, because it's inevitable. It happens every weekend. Somebody hits the wall at the kink. This past weekend happened to 2 different cars, or 2 weekends ago when I was there. Luckily, not mine. We went and pulled the brake pads out of my car to make sure that, because the SS1LE and all of like the 6-piston Challenger and Chargers use the same brake pad. And we're like, well, if we're going to double stint his Challenger with 717 horsepower and 162 mile an hour front straight, middle straight, back straight, like, we're going to run out of brake pads quick. So while the car was like in shambles, like, I went and threw a jack under it, got the brake pads out, and we used those brake pads too. Because again, I mentioned earlier, Road America is really hard on the car. It eats brakes like nobody's business.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, when I was in that moment, I had no idea what to do. I bought track insurance.
Right.
But I didn't know what was happening. So I called the number. Well, it's a weekend, and like the people who normally handle that stuff aren't there on the weekend. So I was like talking to like just a call center, basically.
Which was so strange when you pointed it out in your video. It's like most track days are on a weekend.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you have a few people working on the weekend that are, you know well versed?
Even if they don't have somebody there on the weekend, like, they should know. Just have somebody there. Like, oh, it's a track policy. You won't hear from somebody until Monday or whatever it was. And then like my adjuster was like off on Monday. So I didn't hear anything until Tuesday. But the reason I made that video was because while I was sitting there in the garage looking at my car that was in pieces, I was like, all right, what do you do? And like Googling, like, what do you do when you crash your car at a track? And like, there was no real relevant information. So I was like, you know, this is going to be a hard video to make, but I'm going to walk people through my experience and what to expect. And the video has done great. It's got like 35,000 views.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's, sure, people come in for the carnage. I know that. But so many of the comments were like, dude, thanks for making this video. I had something similar happen, and I didn't know what to do. I was like losing my shit, and this video walked me through like what to expect, and it calmed me down during that. And I'm like, good. That's all I wanted out of that video.
We had a similar sort of situation when we were at on the community rally, right? Because a lot of people, like, it was their first time tracking, and they're like, well, what do you do for the track insurance, or what happened, because it's one thing if you go to like DCTC, you're not hitting 140 miles an hour, nowhere near it.
You're getting like lucky if you're hitting triple digits, period.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, the damage, like, can it be high? Sure, but probably not. Road America, there's a lot more risk associated. Like if your brakes go, I've seen a video of a car's brakes going out on that first turn. It's like just whacking a wall, or like in your instance, the kink. Like it's a higher risk track. That's just part of it,
for sure.
So I feel like there's a lot of questions too, and a lot of people just got the track insurance, of course. But if something happened, most of those people would have been clueless as to what actually would be the next steps.
Yeah. And if you don't get track insurance, you're SOL. There's not many. In fact, today I can confidently say there aren't any standard policy carriers that cover even high performance driving education events anymore, because there were a couple, and I believe as of like January or February of 2023, like none of those carriers do that anymore.
Really?
So you are stuck with like a Haggerty, which I use then, or what I've been using recently because they're a Minnesota based company and I like supporting local, which is OpenTrack. So OpenTrack is same deal, track insurance. They're located here in Minnesota. They're headquartered out in Minnesota anyway.
So they do national coverage too, though?
Yeah, national coverage. Yeah. And, there's always another underwriter somewhere. Like when Haggerty does track insurance, it's underwritten by RLI. OpenTrack, I'm not sure who their underwriter is. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same, RLI. But like somebody else is covering it, right? That's the whole insurance world is like that. Like
that makes sense.
If you have, farmers insurance or progressive insurance, there's somebody else on the back end with a lot more money, like backing that policy. And that's kind of what happens with track insurance. So.
It's kind of like Pizza Hut and Domino's using the same cheese supplier.
Yeah.
I think the big three all use the same cheese supplier. I have to fact check that, but
probably I think that's why Papa John got away with the better pizza, better ingredients thing that they went to court over. I'm totally going on
that's fine.
Pulling out a topic out of nowhere, but he was able to prove that he used a different cheese supplier. So
yeah, man, I need to get a pizza now. I need to get some Red Savoys. That's probably one of my favorites around here.
Yeah, I've had Red Savoy. That's pretty solid.
It's good. We'll have to figure out dinner after the fact if you're down. But now I'm just getting hungry. But okay, so you got in contact with your guy then. So continue on that.
Yeah. So Tuesday rolled around when he was finally back in the office, and
you're probably just calling like, "Hey, how's Hawaii? I'm over here in panic.
I'm in a ball, crying in the corner." No, it was frustrating because I didn't know. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to expect.
That's 72 hours of anxiety.
Oh, yeah, because it happened first thing Saturday morning, and I didn't hear anything till like Tuesday afternoon. So, that's one way to put it. I finally heard from him. They said, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to get an adjuster. Like, where's your car? I'm like, I left it at the track. Like, I drive my car everywhere. People call me crazy for it because I don't like trailer it. But that's because I'm, I don't have the budgets that a lot of people who are at tracks do. Like I'll see double stackers and like 4-car toter homes come into the track, and I'm like, that stacker costs more than my house and all of my cars combined, right? Like you'll see people pulling out Porsche 911 Cup cars by the pair. I'm like, all right, they're at a different level. I'm the guy who like drives to the track on the tires I'm going to use at the track and then drive back home. And I just load all my stuff into the trunk. So I just told him, I'm like, I just left it there because I had no other way of getting it home. And like they offer tow truck coverage, but I wasn't sure like how it would get paid. And to tow your car from Elkhart Lake, which is like, for those that don't know, it's not, think of like Lake Michigan, right? Where Lake Michigan is, it's like almost to Lake Michigan in Wisconsin. To tow that to like the Twin Cities area was
that's about 400 miles, I think.
Yeah, it's about 400 miles. Yeah, so it was going to be like $1,200 or $1,500 to tow it. I'm like, well, I don't like. I know I have like part of that track coverage policy covers towing, And I think the maximum was like $1,000. I'm like, but I legitimately don't have like $1,500 to give this guy to get reimbursed on. So I'm like, I'll just leave it at the track. Like, I can't drive it anyway. Well, if I have to go back and get it, I'll go back and get it. I'll figure it out later. So they just sent an adjuster to the track. They looked at it on track, and within a couple hours after they scheduled somebody to come out and assess it or whatever, he called me back. He's like, yeah, we stopped counting at like $27,000 worth of damage, and we're going to total it out. And that crushed me. Yeah, because I loved that car. I love that car so much. But at least I had an answer at that point.
Right.
So,
because waiting in that like lull, like, all right, am I gonna fix this car? Am I getting a new one? It's a tough situation to be in. Right.
Because I considered fixing it, but then I found out like the frame was damaged to the point where
that's the big one.
Shifted the whole rear cradle over like several inches, and it caused like the driver's side panel to get pushed out. I was like,
that's
I don't know that I would ever trust it on track again, which was my bigger problem. Like, sure, I can dump the money in to fix it, but am I ever going to be able to trust it again? So that was, for me, that was the bigger concern because of the frame damage. If it was body panels,
who cares?
We'll cut it, paint it, send it.
Yeah, nobody will know the difference.
Right.
But when it comes to frame, it's like that's a whole nother level of safety and all that you have to worry about.
And am I going to have to worry that the control arm is off like 3/4 of an inch on one side that I didn't know, and now all of a sudden my car's crab walking on track at 140 miles an hour out of nowhere, and lose my rear suspension while I'm trying to brake heavy into a turn. Like that's can I trust the car again? That was the bigger issue.
Yeah.
So I accepted its fate and made the video. So
so they totaled it out then. And then was there anything else in the process that I guess you would want to share, or is that pretty much it? They just cut you a check?
Yeah, they cut a check. Like with Hagerty, I had the option of like, did I want to do a 10% deductible or a 15% deductible? Because there is a deductible involved, and it is a agreed upon value. So like, I was stupid in only covering it for what I owed on it, right? Because now I had to come out of pocket for the deductible, not to pay off the car, right? Because I had I purchased the car. It wasn't paid off by any means. And like that now when I do it, when I get track insurance, I not only cover what the car is worth, whatever modifications are done to it. And like in my case, it's literally just like brake pads and brake fluid and like cooling ducts for the brakes, and that's it. So there's not a whole lot. It's like, race pads are expensive, so I get like $1,000 of coverage for like pads and stuff like that. But I cover it for not only what I owe, but I cover it for what it would cost me to buy another one brand new, less the deductible, right? Because you still have to pay. Like, if they're going to cut you a check, they're keeping 10% of that as the deductible. And that's what I learned the hard way, is that I covered it for like, at the time, I think I owed like $32,000 on the car. And for those that don't know, like a brand new 2SS 1LE right now is like $57,000, which is nuts, because in 22, when I bought my new one, it was like $53,000, and I thought that was a lot. And I stole that car from the dealership here in Minnesota, man. I got it for $36,650 brand new, because they sat on it. And I bought it in December. Like, I negotiated with them for like 3 months. They're like, no, we got like 18 buyers. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, I'll come get it right now for this much. And finally they agreed to it. So
wow,
it was a big sticker shock going from like a car that was, pretty inexpensive for what it was to now it's like, over that price. But so now I cover it for what I would have to pay to get one new, plus whatever that deductible cost is. Like with OpenTrack, I do 10%. 10% is the smart play. Hagerty offers you 15. I think OpenTrack might as well. But it costs a little more to insure it for only a 10% deductible. That's still, you got to come up with $5,500 or $5,700 out of pocket.
Yeah.
Right. And that's at the 10% rate. So,
and it's a 1-day track insurance, right?
You can set it for however many days you need to. And I say that because there's a lot of track days that are the tracks only do private rentals on like a Monday or a Friday. And it's just like a 1-day event. Like when I went to Audubon Country Club, it was a Monday. So you can do a single day, or you can do a weekend, or you can do when I do Mid-Ohio, it's a 3-day event. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So you just insure for the full 3 days.
You insure it for the full 3 days that it's there. And then there's like a 12-hour plus minus period in there. Like, if the event ends at noon, you're covered until midnight. Right?
Correct.
So, so it's dependent on the event type, the organizer who's running it, and the track itself. So, for example, Road America's rates are a little higher because it is a higher risk track, because you're hitting like mid triple digits several times per lap. It's not just like, you might see like 110 miles an hour. And that's like, no, depending on your car. Like there's a guy out there in a McLaren, there's a GT2 RS that was hitting damn near 200 miles an hour coming into that turn 1 corner, right? So obviously based on the car, that adjusts the price. But Road America is a little more expensive. Audubon Country Club is a little bit less, Brainerd is a little bit less. They're just not as high risk of tracks as Road America.
So in this instance then, how much did you pay for that one track day or the weekend or whatever?
So back then,
yeah,
for the $32,000 in coverage that I got, which was really minimal, it was like $380
for the weekend.
For the weekend.
Okay,
it's the best $380 I spent. Now, granted, I still had to come up with like the deductible money because I didn't plan for that.
Correct.
So I still, to pay the car off, I still had to come up with over $3,000 out of pocket. And that's why I say going forward, I would have done, I would have covered it for maybe 37.
Right.
Instead of the 32, just to have that extra buffer.
So in this instance then, let's say I want to take the GTI over. So let's say the value is $20,000 now because, it's the market's finally crashing.
Right.
Right. So in this instance, I would, do the car's worth $20,000. I would want to do that 1 or 2 day insurance for, let's say 25, cover deductible or whatever, maybe get a little bit of extra, for the pads, tires, whatever, all that stuff. And then that would be like whatever, $300-400 for the weekend. That'd probably be the ideal way to go about it, is just add like an extra 20% of your car's value.
Yeah. And it's not like you're doing anything illegal or shady or wrong. Like when you're filling out the forms, there's a section for, do you have any modifications? And you can put, right? And then they ask you to list them, right? So if you've got a car with like a full cage and, you could spend $5,000 on a carbon fiber seat, list that and it's covered. And then it's an agreed upon value.
Correct.
So I could insure it for $150,000, but nobody's going to agree to that. You know what I'm saying? They're going to come back and say, no, your car's not worth $150,000. Try again. Or they'll work with you and be like, okay, they'll look at the market adjustment. So like if you have something that has a high adjusted dealer markup or market value increase or whatever, right? Sticking with Camaros, new ZL1s. Well, the new Camaro period, they're not making them anymore after like December, right? It's a short year. It's 24 is the last year for it. The value of even my car has gone up, even in like Kelly Blue Book or some of the other, aftermarket sales pieces. The market value has gone up. So they'll compare market value as well. So if you do have something that is a little more rare because they don't make it anymore, or because it has a specific color or something like that. Like if you got a Mistachrome Mustang and you're out there tracking it, like they'll cover you for any adjusted market value, right?
That's fair.
So I could easily insure mine for like 65 or 70. And they would agree to that. Now I'm going to pay for that higher coverage. But if I tried to get like 150 grand in coverage, they're not going to agree to that.
You're like, all right, buckaroo,
Easy.
easy.
Yeah, easy, buddy. You're probably going to drive this into the wall as opposed to having an accident. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can pay for as much as you want to on the agreed upon value, and I've yet to have them decline any dollar amount that I've given, but I'm also not asking for more than what I have to get one new for.
Right. Yeah, in a reasonable range. So is this a conversation that happens after a crash, I'm guessing, or is that
No,
before?
it's up front.
Oh, okay.
It's up front. So you know exactly how much you're paying for, exactly how long you're covered for, and if something happens, how much you're going to get a check for. It's that agreed upon value minus the 10% or 15%, depending on the deductible that you chose.
Yeah, Haggerty's legit, dude. I use them to insure a track event. Well, okay, I should backtrack. So there's a guy down in somewhere near Milwaukee, I want to say, Kenosha, Wisconsin, I think it is. But anyways, his name's Matt Nelson or whatever. American Insurance, whatever agency. Anyways, the guy's legit. He insures
Sounds familiar.
he insures a shit ton of car, guys.
Yeah.
Like I'm talking 3 or 4 times a day he'll post, oh, check out this twin turbo R8 I insured. I saved this person 20%. So
I say the name sounds familiar, so I've probably seen something from
yeah, I highly recommend anybody to reach out to him just because I really should see what kind of sponsorship deal we could set up because he took care of me.
Podcast, man.
Yeah, I do. So that's the thing. I want to go more mobile with this, and just, I mean, I can be already mobile. I'm going to be doing it in SEMA next week, but yeah, we'll see who I get on. But nonetheless, he got my ass out of some hot water because I needed to get, insurance. And it was like, I think a couple of days before an event, and I was renting a track. I was renting at Atlanta Motorsports Park down in Atlanta.
So you needed the liability coverage for the track rental.
Correct.
Yeah, that's
it's tough, dude. The questionnaire that I had to fill out was freaking ridiculous. I wish there was a way to have it preset, like, all right, which track, because I had to answer a lot of questions I didn't know the answer to 1,000%, which, when it comes to insurance, they cross their I's and dot their T's.
Yeah.
So
you answer it wrong. Oh no, that policy is void.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but nonetheless, he managed to get it super last minute. I think we ended up going through Haggerty or whatever. I filled out like 7 insurance forms, like in a panic. But it ended up being like $2,000 to cover it.
Oh my gosh, that's nothing.
Yeah, which at the time I was broke as shit. So I was like, oh my God.
I mean, that's how I live my life. So.
But it was a lot less than I was expecting. I was expecting, like, I think I budgeted for $5,000.
Which is more in line for like a track day rental.
Right. So it was super legit. So yeah, he got my ass out of a pinch. There was a lot of pinches that happened that year with Whiplash Rally. Like my car broke down like a few days beforehand. I was leaking a shit ton of oil. These guys here, Ratified, took care of me.
Awesome.
I didn't trust the car, because I was like, it was literally the day before the rally. I'm like, dude, I'm just gonna go ride with someone. I'm not dealing with a breakdown in the middle of the tail of the Dragon or something. Yeah. I really wanted to drive my car on a Dragon, which is a bummer, but nonetheless, these guys took care of me. So there was a lot of stuff going on in 2022. So, but nonetheless, like, yeah, Haggerty's legit.
Yeah. They're and they're car people.
Yeah,
they are genuinely car people.
Have you watched their channel at all? Mm-hmm. It's super cool. I tried mimicking an editing style they had on there, but dude, it's a cool channel.
It's top, like their production value is astronomically high. It's amazing.
I like it more than Top Gear sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of the stuff Jason Camissa has been doing with him, a lot of his, like, he'll walk in front of a moving car. Like, they freeze frame the thing and he like walks in front of it.
Yep, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, I'm like, that's badass. Like, I want to do that, but I'd probably mess it all up and I'd walk in front of an actual moving car and all this other stuff. So
I figured out how that works, actually. So did you look into it much or no?
I didn't. We're going to have to talk about that.
Yeah, well, I can kind of talk about it on camera because I'm trying to get some more local people to do that as well, because I'm trying to, in the next couple of years, I'd like to step away from the editing side. As I get more monetized on this, I would like to hire editors, even part-time.
Yeah,
that's the dream, at least. But so it's really easy. So if you it's, first of all, I don't know if Apple has their version or whatever, but it's all through Adobe products.
Okay.
So After Effects has this thing called rotoscope, maybe a little bit of both. Yeah, rotoscope. So basically you would film one part. So in this instance, the car's coming by or whatever, and I'm guessing they shoot at a very high frame rate because they have to slow-mo it. Because you're talking about a Lamborghini doing 150, and they slow it down to walking speed.
Yeah.
So what I imagine they do is they film it first, Well, I shouldn't say I imagine. I'm 99% confident this is what they do. Because, again, I did a little test run with the 1M. I never posted it because it was really bad. It was windy. My hair was a mess. But
I'd like to see it. You can show it after.
But anyway, so let's take, for example, the shot of the Lamborghini losing to the C8 Z06. That's the video I'm talking about. So they have it in slow-mo. They filmed it from the side. So you have that layer. And then you have another layer of, what's his name again?
Jason Camissa was the host.
Walking alongside it.
Yeah.
So he's basically talking about, oh, look at this slow piece of crap. He's not standing next to the car. He's not going 200 miles an hour. But you basically, it's kind of like a masking layer.
Okay.
So you basically mask him over it, but it's super ridiculously good. Like sometimes you have to go frame by frame, but it's super cool. Like it's ultra precise. The technology we have now, like 5 years ago, what they're doing on that editing would have taken you hours and upon days instead of minutes.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And it's a free. It might be a plugin. I don't think it's a plugin. I think it's a part of After Effects. So then, do you edit on Premiere? I'm guessing.
You might laugh at me.
Sure, I probably will.
99% of my videos have been done through iMovie on my phone.
That's fine. That does the job for what you're doing.
I know. But like I paid for like Corel Video Studio. Mm-hmm. I didn't love it. Luckily, it's not a subscription service, so it was like a one-time fee. It's okay. It's really clunky.
Yeah.
It's not reliable. It has lots of bugs. I looked into Premiere, and I was like, that seems to be like the industry standard, but like that's unless you get some like crazy like student discount or anything like that. Like,
I miss my student discount so much.
The yearly subscription, it's for the level of YouTube videos I do.
Correct.
I don't need it. So I just downloaded DaVinci Resolve 18.6.
I heard that one's good.
Really good things about it. I haven't used it yet, so
let me know.
I will. I'm actually going to like force myself to use it on the next video that I do, and see how I like it. But it has Premiere level of like add-ons and things that you can do with it, from what I've gathered. Right.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I've heard of that one. I want to, because the thing is I use Adobe everything because I edit on Lightroom and Photoshop, and then I use After Effects and all that stuff. And they're just, again, like you said, the industry standard. And I have the whole cloud subscription. I can't remember how much it is, but it's like it pays for itself given everything that I do.
Exactly, because you're a photographer.
Yeah.
And having Photoshop is just tool of the trade.
Yeah, people forget I'm a photographer, by the way. Shoot with me, you bastards.
Yeah. Shoot. I shot with Harris
a couple months ago.
Yeah, a few months ago. May. No, it was after May. It was like June. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
It was shortly after
I was blown away his photo skills, photography skill, editing skills, all of it. Awesome, man. I love
and a sparkling
pictures.
personality.
Personality is top notch. He's incredibly handsome. And if you're not familiar with my car and his work, it was one of the limited prints. Mm-hmm. So
hyper limited.
yeah, that's all right. That's all right.
But so anyways, but yeah, so that's kind of like the quick 5-minute introduction to the editing I think people should be looking into, because in Minnesota there's only a handful of people that do stuff like that. And the reason I started doing that is because I got really, 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 really mad because somebody who's not a part of the car scene or is just trying to get into the car scene put out a really awesome video. So I had to do a little self-analysis of myself, be like, okay, why am I upset about this? It's not because this is, because I'm all for people coming into the community. I love bringing people up. So I'm like, all right, that's not why I'm upset. I'm upset because I let myself fall off. I stopped learning. Yeah. I stopped learning a long time ago, so it's like I wouldn't say my work got stale, but it wasn't growing anymore. So then I spent the next week or two looking into everything. I'm like, I need to do this video. I need to do it exactly like this. So I figured it all out. The problem is that it's very time consuming to actually edit.
It is.
Especially, and then I learned how to use proxies and all that stuff, which, again, if you ever get into Adobe, I could show you how to use it. But basically what it does is because I shoot in 4K, it makes it possible to edit in 1080p. So you're not using all those resources while you're editing. It's super cool stuff. I can't believe I never knew about it before. I'm sure I have a few listeners that might learn something today, so I highly recommend it. You'll save hours upon hours of time. But so one thing I wanted to ask you about, let me check what we're doing for time here.
Yeah, I don't even know what time it is.
Yeah, man, we're cooking. We're about an hour 40, dude. That was actually one thing I was really scared about losing Sean. This is my second worst breakup in my life.
No.
Is would I be able to
the first one you just didn't pay me enough. I told you I needed. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we just couldn't come to a contract agreement.
Right.
I used to tell people like he's coming to the end of his contract. They're like, what?
just roll with it.
He's a free agent. But I was worried about not being able to hold longer conversations. Like, oh, we'll run out of stuff to talk after 20 minutes. Yeah. And like we talked before the show, it's a little trickier with introverts because I got to figure out how to talk to them. But nonetheless, where was I? But yeah, we're cooking. But with the question,
editing.
Yeah.
You fell off and you started.
No. I was going to ask you a new topic. I was actually more so curious. What kind of tools do you use for your track days?
Oh gosh, man, I'm a checklist guy.
Yeah.
I need checklists for literally everything, or else I'll forget. Like I'll forget to wear a shirt that day, right?
Yeah.
So, and I know I tried to stay off my phone as much as I could today, but I have a checklist that I make specifically for track days.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know what camera's going to pick this
Probably
up.
none of it.
Probably none of it. But this is everything that I take to the track with me.
Oh, my God. Oh, wow.
And, this, believe it or not, all fits. Have you seen the trunk of a Camaro?
It's not tiny, but it's a little tight.
The opening is you can't even shove a small child in there, right? It's okay. It's got the handle for the release. But the trunk space is actually huge.
Yeah.
So between the trunk and I'll keep my helmet, and I bring a spare helmet with me as well, because one of my favorite things to do at the track is take passengers with me.
Yeah. Which is a crazy experience.
Share that experience with them, because a lot of people have no idea what anybody's car can do, right? Not even their own, most of the time, at the limit when it's being pushed as hard as it's being pushed. So I love taking people on rides with me. But so my biggest, if I had to get rid of half of that list and I could only take so many things with me, it's a basic set of hand tools and sockets.
Yeah, I was more so referring to on-track tools, anything because for example, Pierre uses AIM or whatever.
Oh,
yeah, stuff
okay.
like that.
Sorry, misunderstood. You don't need any tools at all. No. Well, let me just finish that thought. So,
yeah, go for it.
The biggest thing for me, because I do drive to the track, I don't drive on track pads to the track. So I take everything with me that I need to do a brake pad swap. At minimum, that's what I need. Have to have it. The rest is all in an emergency situation. If I might need this tool, I have it, right? But that's my must-have. Everything you need to swap the brake pads out. In-car tools for data logging and stuff like that. So the Camaro, the Corvette, they have the PDR, the Performance Data Recorder. So a lot of people look at it as it's a really shitty 720p camera that's right up by the mirror, and it's almost like a dash cam shot. And it does the overlay of the track and G-forces and pedal input, right? Throttle and brake. But it's an even more powerful tool on the back end of that. There's software. There's something called. The PDR is made by Cosworth. And it's made for General Motors for the Corvette and Camaro. They also make them for other. I think I'm probably wrong on this, and I'll probably get called out, but I think they make the Porsche data, because they have something similar in the GT3 cars, GT4s, all that. I'm sure somebody's gonna pull their hair out when they hear
screaming at the windshield.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, Cosworth has another software called PI Toolbox, and that'll give you all of the data that your car spits out. I'm talking left rear tire temperature, right front suspension travel, like
a full-blown like Motec data log.
Full-blown Motec, yeah, absolutely. And that's all built into the car.
Wow, okay.
Which is really cool. But it uses GPS for signaling and stuff like that. And if it doesn't have the perfect signal, at that point it just becomes a dash cam. So I do redundancy. So I run, like if you look at those videos, you'll see my phone has a timer going on it. And that's Harry's lap timer. Mm-hmm. And Harry's lap timer is like a Track Addict makes a version of it. And it basically uses the GPS signal from your phone and your phone's accelerometer and stuff like that. And I've compared the data from like Harry's lap timer and the built-in PDR made by Cosworth, so it's a quality piece. And they're within 1/10 of each other every single lap. So it's not like one is way off and vice versa. So I like to use the Harry's lap timer because it isn't intrusive, but it can expand. So what I mean by that is I didn't use it this last time, but you can use an external GPS and it'll pair with Harry's lap timer. And you can, any like OBD2 tool, like scan tool that might give more information. Like the one I have is like a MX4 or something. Like I can get the exact model info to you or whatever, but like you can plug that into your OBD2 port and Harry's lap timer will sync with that and bring more data into that lap.
Okay.
So before I had my Camaro, I was still tracking. I was tracking Challengers, which was always fun. And I would get all of that information, like not the same level of information from like you would get from the PDR, like a built-in system. The AIM systems, very similar. They have their standalone unit, but then they have a lot of like, you can plug into the OBD2 and like the Catalyst system, the new Garmin Catalyst. That's a great system too, because it's built in video and it has all the GPS data like built into the unit itself. And I believe they're coming out with a new unit soon that will have a little more data. That's it's not inside info. I don't know anybody at Garmin for that, but my understanding that there was some leaked footage of like an updated version of that from somebody who works at Garmin. So I think they're releasing, and it also explains why their price dropped a couple $100 within the last month.
That's fair.
Yeah, there's all sorts of, AIM is like the industry standard go-to for track stuff if you don't have a system like a PDR.
Okay.
Right? In fact, a lot of like the PDR is an option. And if your car wasn't, like if you just found a Camaro or a Corvette at a dealership and the dealership didn't order, like if it was a dealer order car, they didn't order PDR as an option, like the AIM is the acceptable go-to.
Okay.
Right? Like Racebox is another one that a lot of the big magazines use, but AIM is solid, man. That's a great unit. It's super accurate, but that's what I use. I use the PDR that's built into the car. And then for redundancy purposes, I use the Harry's lap timer, which it's like a $30 app.
Right.
Right. And you can run it on Apple or Android.
Okay. That's pretty legit. Yeah. I was just curious about that. Cause like you do a lot of track days. So I was just curious cause I feel like everybody, I'm just trying to kind of collect data in my own head. Is like, is everybody using the same sort of thing or is everybody using something different, you know?
Yeah. So. There's some pretty acceptable, like the car community accepts certain things and they know when other things are bullshit. Yeah. Right? Like a lot of drag racers use like the Draggy. Yeah. Or whatever that is. Right? And like when that first came out, there was some, I don't want to say controversy, but like some people were like, oh, that thing's not accurate at all. And other people are like, oh no, it's totally accurate. Like, and then as it grew as a product, it became more and more accurate. Yeah. Same with AIM, same with Racebox, same with like, Track Addict, same with Harry's lap timer. All of and AIM has always been at the forefront. I'm probably going to make some people mad here, but they're almost like Apple when it comes to how they do their product marketing, because like the AIM doesn't go through a lot of updates, And when they do update, and you're like, well, okay, XYZ product already had that. But like Ames is solid. Like they've done their own testing with it. Like they make an AIM Smarty Cam, I think it's what it's called.
Okay.
And, to add video, it's like a 720p camera. But stability is on point. The auto exposure is on point, so it's not like washed out windshield and super crisp interior and vice versa, right? So they're a little behind on like the cutting edge technology, but when they do release it, you know it's going to work. Yeah. And you know it's going to be accurate. Mm-hmm. So that's where I'm showing a little bit of my Apple fanboyism, but like you may not have, like my phone doesn't have USB-C, but the new one does, but that shit's been out forever. Yeah. Right. But you know, you know, it's going to work reliably going forward.
Yeah. We don't fake the moon.
Right. Yes, we don't fake the moon.
Yeah, I knew that before they even announced it, by the way. Listen, I came from Android and that whole lifestyle. They're both great. But when they said, oh, look how crisp of a picture you can get from the moon, I'm like, I immediately was like, bullshit. Like, there's AI involved.
Of course.
It's like you're telling me that moonshot is perfect every time. Do you understand how fucking far away the moon is?
Yeah, it's at least 5 miles.
Like, we haven't figured out how to get gas station footage to look better than 144p. And you're telling me... it blows my mind. But nonetheless, since we are getting on that 2-hour mark, have you listened to the show before?
I have. Okay. Not as much as I'll be honest, I'm not going to bullshit you. Like, I wish I had more time to be able to listen. When I used to like work out in the field, I would drive all day long. I would listen to podcasts all day long. Now that I work primarily from home,
different story.
It's a different story. But I've watched a couple of episodes on YouTube. I've listened to a couple of episodes as well. So I pick and choose the ones that I really
from the catalog. That's the goal with everything.
I listened to most of your very first episode. I think you're talking about one of the Corvettes.
Literally the first episode was about that,
the first episode,
Yeah, the E-Ray, and that's when I was released, and then I had a video go viral, get 1 million views, and never been called gay so many times in my life in the comment section. It was wild. Awesome. I got flamed so much on that video. I pissed off a lot of people with that video.
Wow. You can't make everybody happy. So.
Oh, but I was going after it on that one.
That's still... But I also watched or listened to and watched a lot of the... oh my gosh, I forgot her name, but from Carsmatology.
Oh yeah, Jen. Yeah.
Because as a hobby and like a side gig, like I detail cars too.
I forgot about that. We didn't even touch on that. Yeah,
I know. Yeah, I'm a man of many talents. So have I listened to your entire catalog?
No.
Yeah, I have not.
There's only a handful of people that have. Shout out to Tony Crayons. I think it's Slow Panda or whatever. He literally went through and put together an Excel sheet of the question I'm about to ask you.
All right.
So for those of you that haven't listened to the show, if this is your first time listening to the show, at the end of every episode, I ask a question. It used to be no longer we.
I'm not taking my clothes off again.
But at the end of every episode, we ask a question. To kind of get an idea of who you are as a car enthusiast. Yeah. So the question goes like this. You have an unlimited budget. Let's start with that. You won the Powerball, whatever happened. You have to choose a daily, a show car, and a track car. The only limit is your imagination. You could do whatever swap you want, whatever wheels you want. Hell, I don't care if you get a tank. But the only thing that's limiting you is your imagination. So that's really the test of this, because a lot of people just go with the safe answer.
But, well, you know what I'm going to say for track car, right?
Let's see.
It's going to be a Porsche 911 GT3.
Okay. RS?
I don't know.
Okay.
It depends on the model, because as fast as a PDK is, and as ultimate weapon as a PDK is, I'm a save the manuals guy only because I love that physical mechanical connection to a 6-speed. Mm-hmm. So if we're talking the most recent generation, like I wouldn't get the RS as much as I want to. I wouldn't get it because I would prefer, I don't care if I'm slower because of it. The natural connection to the car, driving a manual, using 3 pedals, for me, that stirs up something like a
primal.
It's not even maybe a little primal, but there's an emotional connection. There's a physical connection. Your adrenaline. For me, it's an adrenaline pumping move. Like it's for me, it's the ultimate man and machine connection. I guess I need a thesaurus, but so for me it would be a GT3.
Okay.
And only not the RS, because currently you can't get an RS with a manual.
The outgoing generation, that one came in a manual, didn't it? Maybe. I don't know. I have to get a Porsche expert.
I don't know if it was that a 991.2?
Oh, don't even get me started on that.
I think and yeah, I love Porsches, but I get a little confused on those. I think it was the 991.1. I don't know. I'm sure we'll hear about it, but I would get I would absolutely get, hell, you could give me a 2016 911 GT3 if that RS came with a manual. Yes, I would take the RS.
Yeah.
So speaking strictly with 2022 23 RS, I wouldn't, only because I would only get the GT3 because it has the manual.
Which the new GT3s are phenomenal. There was a handful of them at Road America, and they were awesome to watch run.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, show car and daily.
Oh God, show car would be a Pagani.
Okay.
So I'd have to like the Zonda, even like the Cinque Roadster was just such a beautiful car.
White with black and with the middle red pinstripe.
Yeah. They only made like 5 of them. But like I look at Paganis, they're almost like a work of art. Mm-hmm. Every like interior, everything's like CNC milled, and like everything's just beautifully crafted, right? And that NA, I think it's a NA BMW V12 in the
Mercedes.
Yes. Sorry to all my German enthusiasts out there. Yes, it was the NA V12 Mercedes that just it's also one of the best sounding V12s that's out there. I would struggle between the Zonda and the Huayra. Only I lean towards the Zonda because of the NA V12 as opposed to the turbo spoolie sounds of the Huayra. But yeah, I think I would do a Zonda for the show car.
Okay.
So daily, like a GMC Vandura. No, I'm kidding. For those that don't know, that was like the A-Team van. Okay. It was the GMC Vandura.
So for reference, Rat, the owner of Ratified here, he was like, just a truck. I don't care which truck.
Yeah. That's fair.
As long as it can tow.
Yeah. I mean, that's practical. I've never been a truck guy. I'm eventually going to need to get a truck because I'd like to start towing my car to the track. But for daily,
last episode, for reference, Sam said, I think he said GT2 RS. So,
for a daily? Yeah, I mean, shit.
Some people could do it.
Imagination, right? I mean, I haven't even gone into like swapping motors or anything like that. But, man, my friend Nick is going to be pretty proud of me for this one. I would probably do, after I made sure I had all of the maintenance done on it, the V10 M5.
Nice.
Yeah. I've, like I said, I love all cars. I've owned a Mercedes before. I've owned I had an S2000. I've had plenty of SRT vehicles, but just as a daily, man, V10 M5 with just I might even do like a straight pipe exhaust, just make that thing just sound like an F1 car all day long.
Insane. It's an amazing sounding motor.
Yeah. So my friend Nick has one of those. He lives in Michigan, And he said that thing, like when you put it into its M mode, is like this visceral machine. It's like a beast. And then when it's not in M mode, it's just like your regular, everyday, comfortable BMW. So
I like it. That's a good 3. That's a good 3. V10, V12, and then a little
flat 6.
Flat 6. Yeah. Nice. Well, first of all, thank you for coming on. I've been wanting to get you on for a number of weeks now, so I'm glad we can make this happen.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Super blast. Super blast. The fuck.
Yeah, it was a super blast.
It was a super blast. So where can people find you?
Like fetch. So you can find me on Instagram.
Okay.
It's followmyline_17. If you want to search me on Facebook, we can become Facebook buddies. That's fine. It's my name's Luan Zeqollari. We'll have to like get your decoder ring out and we can spell that out on the screen. And then on YouTube, it's Follow My Line. So that is I don't want to say my main social media platform, but that is probably where that's where you'll find all of my track videos, my how-to videos, my vlogs, stuff like that. Any of the videos that we talked about today. And then Instagram is really kind of where I post pictures of stuff like that. Just my car content and things like that. I have a TikTok. I couldn't tell you what it is. I don't really use that platform much. And I gave Threads a shot for like 18 minutes and ditched that. And
freaking suck.
Haven't been on Twitter/X for a couple of years. So
those are pretty much the main few.
Instagram and YouTube are
sweet.
Are the main ones. Yeah.
Perfect. As for everybody else, you're on the Monoxide Podcast. You found me. We're all good here. How'd you like that Jocko, by the way?
That was good. I know you said it wasn't one of your favorite versions, but I liked it.
Yeah, that was the what is it? Watermelon.
Was the watermelon.
Yep. Yep. So that's pretty sweet. Glad you liked that one.
Yeah.
And this is the part of the episode where I basically just plug everything. It's like,
go for it.
Get 10% off Jocko. Use code Monoxide 10. Same thing with 3D Car Care. I still got to get the shelves up here. I just got my package today. I cannot wait to try it out, dude. So they have this whole new line. So 3D Car Care was essentially the supplier for like shops, kind of,
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, because you detail. But now they're kind of branching into the end user.
I saw that they're doing more consumer based.
Yep. So I've got one of their. I think they just launched it like 2 months ago. So I got like a full package of detailing products. So I'm gonna try that out. See how because my car's it's rough. I'm not a big detailer. A lot of people.
I've seen it.
Yeah, people are meticulous. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah.
If I ever get rich, I'm paying somebody else to do it. Like for me, it's like I'd rather just detail like once or twice a year, get a really nice, and then the rest I'll just be like, here, somebody else take care of it. But financially, I'm not there yet, and it's a Golf. Now, if I had
nothing wrong with that, by the way.
Yeah, if I had, somebody's got to support the detailers. I'll be one of them. But
that's great.
Yeah, and I think that one's also like use code Monoxide 10, save a nice little 10% and a way to support the show. But nonetheless, if anybody made it this far, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for joining me, and see y'all next time.